You know, one issue that comes up time and again is the issue of sale of guns. And Roger, as you know, the sale of guns with a federal firearms dealer is a whole special process. If you go into a store and you buy a gun from a federally licensed firearm dealer, you have to go through a background check. There's a whole lot of paperwork that goes along with that. However, if you want to buy a gun from me, if I have listed a gun in Uncle Henry's, then you could simply come to my house, or we could agree to meet by the side of the road, and I could say, it's $500, you say it's $400, and I'd sell it to you for $450, and that would be it, nothing more than that.
You wouldn't have to ask me who I was,
None whatsoever.
whether I had a record or anything.
I would simply accept your money, and you would accept the gun, and nothing more than that.
Okay. That's, I think, an accurate statement of the law. Gentlemen, is that a problem?
That is a very big problem, and that is, I think, one of the major problems that Maine has to confront and the rest of the nation has to confront. But I'd like to put that in the context of the previous discussion about the Constitution and the Heller decision. The Supreme Court said, we recognize Second Amendment rights are individual and are protected by the Constitution. We also recognize that that right can be qualified by reasonable laws. To give this program dramatic interest, we have to have some debate back and forth. But the fact of the matter is, we agree with gun owners on a lot of issues, and we've had agreement tonight that there are some guns that shouldn't be sold, there are some that should be sold. We would really like to see this gun debate resolved by agreement that Second Amendment right can be preserved, we can have sensible gun laws, and we don't need to choose between the two. In a way, it's a false decision we're always being asked to make in the interest of good magazine stories, good newspaper stories, good TV shows. We can have both, and I believe that people in Maine want both. They want sensible gun laws. They want the right to own guns. We can have that. It's not.
Let me ask you, gentlemen, isn't it a sensible gun law to say that if I want to go and sell a firearm tomorrow, that at a minimum I ought to know that the person I'm selling it to is not a mentally ill convicted felon?
Well, if you know he's a mentally ill convicted felon, you just broke the law as soon as you sold him the gun. I mean, here's the real thing. There's like 51,000 gun laws in this country, okay? So how many more gun laws do we really
How about that one?
Huh?
So that places on me an obligation to.
Yeah, it does. You know, but here's the fact. Do it again practically. I don't know how many guns there are in the state of Maine. Nobody knows, and we'll never tell. That's reality, right? Suffice to say, there's a gun for every man, woman, and child and dog in this state. To pretend that anything's going to keep all of those guns from being handed back and forth and swapped for money is a silly notion. It's just not going to happen. You have to assume that almost all of those guns are legal guns in this state, and they're just in private hands. As soon as you make it difficult for me to sell my gun to somebody else, you just made me a lawbreaker again. What good is that?
I can't disagree with you more. I have talked to a lot of gun owners and my parents and grandparents' generation. I don't think Maine hunters, responsible Maine gun owners, would ever sell a firearm to a stranger, cash only, no questions asked. That's not good, responsible citizenship, and that's all we're talking about here, that people who take the responsibility, and you know it as well as I do, the responsibility of owning a gun is something we don't let kids have guns. We wait until they're older, and I believe that it is a tradition in Maine, and it's part of the Maine gun culture, that you don't sell guns to strangers. And when you see a sign go up at a gun show or an Uncle Henry's, cash only, no questions asked, it ought to tell us something. Something's going on there. We're now talking about people who shouldn't have guns having access to guns. And a background check, whether it's imposed by the government or good moral conduct, is a good idea.
Representative, answer him, and also answer this if you would. You know, the law does require dealers to do instant background checks on buyers. Is that overregulation too, or and if it's not, why shouldn't we be requiring it of private sales as well?
Well, I think that we're not getting the credit that we're due. The National Rifle Association, the Sportsmen's Alliance, Maine, along with the Department of Public Safety, are distributing, even in gun shops, gun buyers kits. And in this kit, it tells a person how to safely, legally exchange a gun with another private citizen, about requesting a picture ID, a driver's license, verification. And people are doing that. The reality is that we have sold guns back and forth to father, to son, to neighbor, to friend. Are we having a problem? It's the same routine. Is there a problem there? There isn't a problem there, but we hear their call, and we're being responsible, and we're responding to it by having these gun buying kits, which are a great success. They're really doing very well. I wish I brought one with me.
Well, isn't he making a good point? I mean, is there a problem? Are there cases in Maine where private sale leads to a violent crime and a situation gone bad? Or is this a problem?
I can testify that there is such a problem. We know it, well, actually, I've been a spokesman for Project Safe Neighborhoods, which distributes this kit that we've just been talking about. Here's one of the things that happens. This is kind of interesting. You're a felon in Massachusetts. You come to Maine and you go to a bar and you meet a young woman and she becomes your girlfriend. She can buy a gun in the state of Maine, okay? And it doesn't matter whether she does it at a gun show or if she does it in a private sale. She gives you the gun. You take it back to Massachusetts. Now, if she knew you were a felon, she just broke the law. So most of even those, you see, even that kind of a thing, when it happens, it's already against the law. There's zillions of gun laws that cover almost everything that you could do anybody any harm with.
So why do we need one more?
That example is a great example. The guns used in the Columbine High School shooting were bought at a gun show without a background check. The young woman, okay, the young woman who bought the guns was a straw purchaser buying the guns for her boyfriends. She first went to a licensed dealer to buy a gun, and they said, you have to fill out a background check. She lost her nerve at that point, so I'm not filling out any background check, and she didn't buy the gun. She went to a place where she did not have to fill out a background check, and she later testified that had she been required to fill out a background check, she would not have had the nerve to violate the law as she did, with horribly tragic consequences. Laws make a difference. We have a gun problem in Maine. There's been a lot of talk about Maine being such a safe state. Maine has a higher death rate from firearms than New Hampshire, higher than Vermont, higher than Massachusetts, higher than Connecticut, higher than New York, and higher than New Jersey, and higher than Rhode Island. That's not a record to be proud of. We are one of the worst states in New England in terms of firearm deaths.
One last topic we want to try to get to, and that's the subject of registration. Many countries in the world require firearms to be registered so that we know where they are and we know if there's a problem they can be traced back to the owner. Is that something which would make sense here in Maine?
Yes, I mean, I think it has a lot of sense in those states where it has been tried, Massachusetts, Maryland, Hawaii, and other states. It has resulted in less gun violence. I don't think the Maine legislature is ready to go that far, but it does have a lot of merit.
Well, maybe not so. Representative Hanley, you ready to go that far?
As a matter of fact, I'm not. The reality is you can pass all the laws or additional laws if that you want to. We haven't in Maine passed any new laws in 6 years. The entire legislature. Either the committee's turned them down or the entire legislature's turned them down. Obviously, we feel that we're relatively safe, secure, and well regulated.